Well, hello people. I'm in my hobby room and it's limited space here. So I have a lot of boxes and tools and RC cars and all. I'm just gonna make this video because I have to clean up a bit there and sort things and put something in the boxes and get the table cleaned up so I can start working on my car skinner. I'm also going to talk about the last days. As you saw my last video, I was doing my very first off-road race, both two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. It was very wet that day, and especially when driving two-wheel cars it was very difficult because you have to be very careful with the throttle. If you just gave a bit too much throttle, the car would often start to swirl or go like a snake on the ground. And if you was in a corner, you had to be especially very careful with the throttle. But it was fun anyway. I guess some people didn't show up that day because it was raining, and most of the electronics are not directly waterproof. So when you have a ESC that's cost about $250, that's the Hobby Wing X10 Pro 160 amp ESC, then you should be a bit careful. In my off-road buggies, I'm just using the Hobby Wing 120 quick run ESC, and that ESC costs only around $50. So I thought, yeah, what the heck, I'm just gonna show up and have a bit fun this day. So we were in the start, I think we were 4 drivers in the 4-wheel class, and we were 3 drivers in the 2-wheel class. Yes. Later that day the weather got a bit better, but it was still very wet, and it kept being wet all day long. So now I'm just gonna see, I've got some new stuff in, and I have to find room for that. And I bought a new used touring car, that's an on-road racer 4-wheel drive, 1/10 scale. That's the Schumacher Mi8, and it's been just used a bit short time, and it's the carbon chassis edition. You also have the alloy chassis edition. They say that the alloy chassis edition is better for carpet racing, and the one who I bought this from was using it for outdoor, I believe it was asphalt racing, but I'm going to use it mostly indoor carpet racing. But my driving skills are not that high, so I guess I'm not going to feel any different anyway. And later I can see if I want to just buy the alloy chassis later. I bought this car for around $700, and just the kit itself cost around $600. Just the kit, no electronics and body and wheels and anything. So for about $700 I got this car, and it has a Zombie 13.5 motor, and it got the Hobby Wing XRT stock 80 amp 2S ESC here. So and it also got a servo. But when I was driving the 4-wheel car, Team Associated B74.2 in the competition, lucky for me, but sometime after the competition was finished, I broke the servo in this car. But I did know that before I started that this servo was not totally fine, because it had some noise. So I felt that it was soon going to break down, but I just used it in the competition, and luckily for me it held on. But after the competition, I drove some more, not very long time, and I had a small crash into a wall, and then the servo just stopped to work. So lucky for me, it was after the competition. So I took the servo that was in this car that I bought used and put it in here. It's a power Hode servo. And the one servo that broke down in the B74.2 was this Savox Black Edition SB2265MG. And I think this servo is quite new, so I couldn't find a gear repair kit for this servo. I could find it online, but it was a bit expensive to order and ship to Norway, and with the tax and everything. So I just gonna wait some time to it get more easier to get a hold on. Maybe I'm just gonna talk with the local hobby store if he can order one set of the gear repair kit for this servo. Because the servos we are using in racing, both off-road and on-road, are typically quite expensive. If not, you find some okay good servos from China, but typically the price is around $50 to $100 maybe. But I was looking for some new servos, and I found two of these power Hode servos. It's the D15. Let me see if it got any. And it's 7.4 and 8.4 volts, so you can use this with 2S battery. And it's not the quickest servo when using it with 6S volt. No, with 6 volt. But I'm already using this servo in, let me see, in the, it's maybe in the 2-wheel drive TLR buggy. Let's see. Oh, we got it here. It's maybe in this car here. I got this servo. Yeah, it's here under this on-off switch. So it's this short size servo, so you have better space for the rest of the electronics. And this servo is working good. It's not the quickest, as I said, on 6 volt, but it's okay. It's not bad at all. For my driving skills, it's more than enough. And the power Hode servos, I think they are quite good. I'm also using one or two of them in a basher car, and it's have hold good. Or maybe it was in the Hyper VS Hubao that was before nitro cars, now into electric. So I found two of these used, and here again you can see it's the half size or the short size. So this I'm gonna put into the car. That's something I'm gonna do soon. Just have to clean up her. Let me see here. Also, when I bought this Schumacher Mi8 used, it didn't come with the user manual, so I just print out the user manual here. Instruction manual, so I'm not gonna look into that now. And I also print out the exploded view, so because here you have all the part numbers, so that's good to have. It's quite a big difference how this car is designed when you compare it to the much older Team Associated, this car here, Team Associated TC7.1. This is a design that you find in many of the racers and touring cars, and also other type of cars, where you have these hinkpin blocks A, B, C and D and hink pins, and you have the arms both in the front and in the rear. But if you look at this Schumacher car, it's built a bit different. It got like this, it got arms under here, but you don't have any hink pins. So the arms are mounted with a point in the front and in the rear. And then also the upper type of sort of arm is just two links that's in a V shape. And then you can adjust the droop and everything. And one guy at the indoor racer track, he told me that this design, you don't have these movements in the arms that you have with this old design here, when you have the hink pins and the hink pins block. Here you can see the arms can flex a bit front and rear. Especially you can see it here in the rear of the car, it's a bit flexing here. But with this Schumacher design, you don't have this flex at all. It's more or less completely locked. But I'm not very well to this design, so I cannot tell much about it. You also have the same design in the rear, so you don't have hink pin blocks. And then of course you don't have the block inserts. So I believe if you, instead of the block inserts, if you want to do something, you have to adjust maybe with washers or something at the height. Some spacers or washers, you can adjust the height of the mount there, mount points, both in the front and the rear. So quite a bit different design. Yeah. This car, this 110 scale 2-wheel drive touring car, is set up with electronics for stock racing. That's 13.5 turn engine. And as I told you, this is the Hobbywing XR10 stock spec 2S EC. And of course we're going to have a servo here. And this car will be using a 2S battery, and this is the long size. But you can move this battery mount, it looks like, to the front here, so you have can use maybe a short pack 2S if you want. But also the guy who was selling this car told me, I can't quite remember, he said something like outdoor they are using full size, and maybe indoors they are using half size. But I see I also can use the mount there, so I can use the weight, adjust the weight in the cars, more rear or more front, I guess so. So and one thing, as I told you in one of my kit or build videos of the TLR or the Team Associated B74.2, I'm not very special fond of building the cars, because it just takes a lot of time. But of course, if you're a serious racer, you should build your car so you learn how all the car parts are put together and how they can be taken apart again if you have to fix something. And if you're in a race, you maybe have short time to fix, so you have to have some experience with your car and know the car quite good. But when I bought it used, and it was ready assembled, so I just have to mount the ESC here using some double-sided tape, and I'm gonna mount the servo here, and then I'm just gonna look over the car and see if everything looks good, and then I'm gonna mount the receiver and start up the electronics and adjust the car. So that is the Schumacher Mi8. Let me now just put away again the Team Associated. Why did I buy a new touring car? Well, I like driving indoor. Here in Norway we have the autumn, and the winter can be very bad weather with snow and rain, and it's also very dark, you know, early. So only in daytime, in the middle of the day, you have a good light outside. So it's nice to be able to drive cars indoors on track, and typically that would be carpet, and it could be on-road with touring cars, 4-wheel drive, or 2 front-wheel drive cars. Or also they're using this 112 scale cars, you know, this what I call it, the pancake cars or something like that, pan cars. But I like the touring cars, 4-wheel drive. I think they are interesting, and you also have a good high speed on this car, and it looks, for me it looks like a real car when driving it. It behaves like almost like a real car, looks like a real car when you drive it. But then, let's see, back to the Schumacher. I also bought some foams there, tire inserts, and some wheels there, because when I was doing the racing on Sunday and it was wet, I felt I didn't have quite the best grip I could maybe have. And if I remember right, I'm using the Schumacher Mi8 in the silver. That's a more not so hard rubber. That was I using in the rear, and in the front I maybe used Schumacher Stag, also silver. But I see here on my 4-wheel car B74.2, I'm probably using the Mi8 both in the rear and in the front. And this car was okay to drive, and it, of course, also because it's 4-wheel drive, you get better direction control. The 2-wheel car drive, the two-wheel drive car, yes, was much more hard, and I believe it's maybe the Mi8 in the rear here, also called Servo, and this is the stage, I don't know what they call it, in the front, but I believe this also is in silver. But not enough grip with this car. So what I did order was the Schumacher, is it called mini spike something, in silver. So I'm gonna try these tires when it's a bit wet again, to see if the car is a bit easier to control, especially the 2-wheel drive car. Then also, because it's getting to winter, and I said if we are getting snow and ice and that sort of weather, we will probably not run outside at all. But we have some location where we can drive inside, and I maybe going to set up sort of a off-road track indoors on carpet. And then one man told me that they are using on the buggies, they are using what they called 1/10 buggy foam donuts. So this is just foam. It looks a bit like the foam inserts, but they are much softer. This is much stiffer. So what you do is just pulling these foam donuts over the wheels. And he told me that in the front he couldn't remember if he used any glue at all, but maybe in the rear he used a bit of glue. Because also when you drive indoors, the track will be not that big, and probably just gonna use the 2-wheel drive car, because the 4-wheel drive cars are just too quick. So you are using a 2-wheel drive cars, 1/10 scale buggy, with more or less stock electronics, because you don't need that very high speed. It's more about fine controlling the car with the throttle and steering. And as I said, driving on carpet, but if you're using outdoor tires, they sort of rip up the carpet a bit indoors and make the track not so good to drive on for some time. So yeah, gonna see how it's is to drive indoor with just some buggy foam donuts. So it's one size for the rear, of course wider, and one size for the front, of course smaller. And I also have more wheel cells, but that just because, as I said, I've also ordered some mini spike silver Schumacher tires for rain. So I need some more of these to mount it on, and also the foam inserts for that. And what we have here, yeah, also some few parts for the new Mi8 Schumacher touring car. That's just a new receiver. I'm using Spectrum, so I'm ordered this Spectrum SR315. I could just use the SR215, but the price is not that much between them, so I like to have one channel extra if I need it, or just for the power. And then again, this Yeehaw Racing Angel type 4mm, 5mm connection plug that I'm gonna solder onto the wires here that's connecting to the batteries. And also I bought the new RC4 transponder for this car. I could just shift the transponder over from another car, but I like to have it mounted in the car and just let it sit in the car, especially in the cars that I will be mostly using. Yeah, also in the Schumacher car you have this body mount that's sort of normal here in the front, but in the rear you have it on the rear side like this. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use that like this, or if I'm going to put on the other rear shock tower, so I can just have the normal body mount on the upside. Also, this car is upgraded with a few parts. I'm not really exactly sure, but the seller told me it's the Titanic screws he's using. I'm not sure if that's also on the chassis here, because you can, sometimes it's good to have a bit of weight here on the chassis. But I see they are very shiny, the screws here, so maybe they are Titanic, I'm not sure. What it's called, is it called Titanic? That's isn't that ship that sunk in the Atlantic Ocean? Titanic, but it's yeah, you know what I mean. And for the price, I also got a bunch of bodies, touring bodies. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 or 6 bodies I got there. And this is just stickers and yeah, other things with that. And not only that, I also got a bag of spare parts. I'm not gonna go through all that, but as you can see, it's a complete rear diff. And I guess why they maybe buy a extra diff is not only to have it in a spare if it's break down, but because then you have one diff in the car that you maybe set up with something like 5K oil, and then you can have maybe this diff with 7 or 8K or maybe even 10K oil. So if you're in a competition and you feel a need to change, you don't have to start to change the oil. You just remove the diff in the car and replace it with the other one. So it's a quick change. And it's a bunch of extra spare parts there. It's also a new carbon fiber chassis. So maybe I could talk with a guy in the shop and ask if I could maybe get a deal that if I buy a new alu chassis, what they call it. He can get this from me, and he could sell that for a reduced price maybe. Or I can just sell it myself. Yeah, and you can see here a bunch of parts, like this is a ball, sockets, and here's some carbon parts, and this is some lower shock socket. And this is a nice one to have. It's the roll bar set, or sway bars. So I think you have 3 or 4 dimensions for both the front and the rear, and that's sort of the tuning you are doing to change the sway bar. More rod ends. This is some for the shocks. Even more rod ends. Some screws. Yeah, a lot of stuff here. Also, you have a belt. I think it's, I think, if I remember right, I'm not sure if the car is using the same length both in the front and the rear, because you have this spur that's in the center of the car. So maybe 2 of these belts, and a lot of other parts there. So that I got included for the $700. And let me see, it was also something more. Yeah. Yeah. It was this one. Let me see. This is a Sky RC battery discharger or analyzer, BD200. Sometimes when you're driving and you have to stop driving, maybe the car is broken or you don't have enough time. You get home with a battery or 2 that's fully charged. Then you have to discharge it down to storage vault. And my regular charger cannot do that for any higher than 1 amp. But I believe this can take it much higher, so you can discharge faster, but of course you shouldn't do it too fast either. I don't think these are expensive, but it's okay to have, and it was just included when I bought this Schumacher touring car. And another thing, because as I said, the man that was selling this car was using it for outdoor racing on asphalt. So we also included tire warmers. So this is when you're racing outside, you warm up the tires so you get better grip. I'm not sure if they are using anything on the tires like you do when you're driving indoors. You are using this additive, or what it's called, that you put on the tires. But I'm not sure if they're using anything outdoor, but they're using to warm up the tires so you have better grip. I think they warm it up to about 50-55 degrees Celsius. So this is a tire warmer, not something I have used for when I'm driving indoor, but it is one outdoor track, asphalt track, quite near me. It's about 2 hours or a bit more to drive to. So I plan to the spring or to the summer to take a trip down there and test the touring car on asphalt, because it's nice and fun to drive outdoor on asphalt, I think, if it's good and nice weather. I don't do that if it's rain or cold, only if it's nice and good and warm weather. And then I could maybe have a use for this. So I'm not gonna sell it, but if I see that I'm not gonna drive outdoor at all, I'm probably gonna sell this later. So the Schumacher Mi8, I paid around 700 US dollars. That's just the kit and I bought it used, and it came with the ESC, and it came with a motor, and it came with a servo, and it came with tire warmers, and it came with this discharger that you saw, and it came with a lot of spare parts, and it came with a lot of bodies. It also got 4 wheels that you can see here, but they probably are outdoor wheels and not something I think I'm gonna use, but maybe later when I'm gonna drive, maybe test it outside later. And it also have some upgrades on the car itself, and I cannot detect or see what these parts are because I'm not known to this kit. I'm not built it myself. But the seller told me that he had upgraded with all the parts you should upgrade with, and so I just believe it's okay. But I have to finish, as I told you, now install electronics and set it up like I want. I'm also not sure what final drive ratio it's set up with. I'm not sure what pinion is he is using here, but it looks like a really big pinion. It must be 30 toothed or even bigger, and spur. And it's not the what it's in on these other cars. Is it called 48 pitch? I think that is is it 64 pitch? I'm not sure about that. But I can take a quick look here in the user manual if I find it. Let's see here. So it told me this car was perfectly set up for stock racing. Yes, it's 64 pitch or 48 pitch you are using for the gears. And he have set this car now up with 64 pitch, but I have to read off or count the tooth to be sure what he said. But he told me that it was set up quite near 5.0 final drive ratio, and that should be perfect for this car with this engine and ESC. So I'm just gonna check a bit on that also, and as he was driving it outside, maybe I have to just do a few adjustments when I'm now gonna start to drive it indoors. So that was really all for this video, I guess, if I'm not forgotten something under here. We can take a quick look at the cars I got now. Up here is the HPI trophy Truggy, which I just call Pink Panther. It's a neat nitro car. It's got this 4.6 engine, and this car is very easy to tune, and I bought this also used, and I'm very happy with it, and I hope I can take it out for maybe 1 or 2 more runs before the winter and snow is coming. I'm probably not going to drive the nitro cars in snow. And here we have the HPI trophy buggy. It comes with, is it a 3.5 engine, but I've had a spare 4.6, so that also got the 4.6 engine, but that engine is a bit more used, so it's a bit harder to tune, but I got it to run quite good. And both of these cars are using, I can drive up to about 70 kilometers per hour. I'm probably not going to race these cars because the only racing track I have where I can drive nitro cars is a bit away from me, but I've been there one time, so maybe I'm going to test the cars there. But these are what I look at just basher cars. I'm probably not gonna start driving in races with these cars. And this is the Humla 1/8 scale car crawler. Here we have the Hubao Hyper VS2. That's 1/8 scale buggy, and it was nitro when I bought it, but I've converted it to electric. And this is of course the Team Associated B74.2 110 scale 4-wheel drive buggy. And here we have my two basher cars now. This is Arma Creighton EXP 1/8 scale car, and this is the same. This car got the M2C chassis, and this car got two EXP chassis, and both works good, excellent cars. And I'm gonna keep these two cars because I found out that for bashing I prefer the Creighton 1/8 scale car EXP because it's just the perfect size. It's a bit longer than a Notorious or Outcast. I hope I got the names right now. I also look forward to winter time when we get some more snow and cold. Then I'm gonna put on some paddle wheels, and I'm just using the paddle wheels in the rear and the regular wheels in the front. And then I'm gonna drive out in snow again. And here we have the 110 scale car crawler. This is the what they call again, the RC4VD or something like that, bully. But this is the bully edition .1. It's not the second edition of the car. But I also made a video with this car, and I installed this Yeehaw Racing shocks with the springs are inside this shocks hose here, and I set it up with droop. So I'm gonna take this also for more rides outside. I just hope we get some more longer period with nice weather and dry weather, so I can drive, because I don't like to drive crawlers on wet rocks, mountains. I like to drive it when it's dry outside. Also because the electronics in these cars are not waterproof, and yeah, I prefer to go out and drive crawlers when it's nice weather. But because when I'm driving crawlers, I relax, and I just like to be out in nice weather and take it like a trip. Sometimes I just doing hiking on a mountain and have with me one of the crawlers. Usually I've taken the 1/8 scale car crawlers because that can climb over a bit bigger rocks more easy, and it's easier to hike with this crawler. But if you're out for crawling and not that much hiking or walking, this crawler is of course plenty good. Yeah, and I also got this. I got two two-wheel drive buggies. It's the Team Associated B6.2. I'm really happy with this car. Let me see. Yeah, it's missing the transponder now because I've moved the transponder from this car to one of the other cars. But this car I'm gonna keep. And then we have the TLR 22 5.0 Elite. And this is also a good car, especially when it's dry. I just hope I can find some tires that give me a bit better grip on wet conditions. But usually I'm not driving when it's wet, really wet. So it was sort of, yeah, what they call it. It was sort of a not planned driving racing in when I drove in my first racing competition, because I just wanted to compete. But usually I'm not driving when it's wet like that. So tires for wet conditions, well, yeah, I'm gonna buy one set and see how much they're gonna be used. I got one car for sale now. That's the Notorious 6S. Really good, nice car, and it's upgraded with M2C parts and everything. But I see that for bashing I'm probably gonna use only my Arma Creighton EXP 6X as cars. And I also have for sale my Arlarlo 1/14 scale buggy, because it's a funny car to drive, but it's a bit small, and I cannot drive it in competitions. So I'm gonna use my 110 scale cars in the racing competitions. But it's a fun little buggy to use for some bashing. It can take some bashing. And it's also, what was the speed I got? About 85 kilometers per hour on 2S and almost 100 kilometers on 3S. So it's a crazy little car, and I got a lot of spare parts for it. So I'm selling it cheap. So that's it. I don't think I have anything more here now. But that's, if you followed my channel, you have seen that I've sort of changed a bit away from bashers to more racer cars, like off-road, one-ton scale, and on-road touring. And that's a bit of that is because we have a lot of bad weather here in Norway, much rain, and autumn, winter, also snow and ice. And also in the autumn, winter, we also have, it's quite dark outside, as you can see. So to be able to race and don't have to wait for good weather all the time, it's good to be able to race indoor. And then indoor they are usually using 1/10 scale cars, both on-road cars like the touring cars or two-wheel drive cars, and also buggies, off-road cars. So that's part of why I've moved a bit away from the bashers to the more typically racer cars, 1/10 scale racer cars. But I'm gonna keep the nitro cars because I love nitro also. It's just something about a real engine with more noise and more smoke and more heat and everything. But that just maybe me, because I'm not, you know, I'm not a very young man any longer. I'm turned 51 years this year. So I grew up in the 80s, and then the nitro cars was really the cars we wanted, but I couldn't afford them these years. So I have this car of, I have this sort of, yeah, feel for the nitro cars, like they're real cars, you know. I just like them. And the crawlers are for me something I use when it's good weather outside and just have to relax hiking or something. And the crawlers are typically not that often you break them down if you're not crawling really hard and you just stretch them too hard or something like that. So alright, nitro basher, crawler, electric basher, electric racer, and this 1/8 scale electric buggy, the Hobao. This is also, I look at this more like a basher, because they, if you drove in competition, I think they're using 4S batteries, and I got that, but they are not doing a lot of 1/8 scale electric racing here where I'm living. They don't have the tracks for that. So, but I have it. So maybe if the club I'm into gonna have a 1/8 scale buggy racing experience, I can use this car. So that's also why I keep it, just to have it ready for that. But it's not like a really pro type of car. It's more like a basher racer, sort of like the Arma Typhon TLR, the 6S car, but they use that on 4S when doing racing on track. And yeah, and then we have the touring cars, yes. So that's of course also indoors. So that is all about this video. Now we're just gonna clean up and get the stuff into the boxes and clean up the table so I can fix the cars. One last thing I can tell you is that I was doing a practice on-road racing yesterday with my Team Associated TC7.1, and I'm gonna do some modification on the ESC setup here, because I felt when I was driving on the track that it did oversteer a lot. That's when if the corner is going to the left and I was coming with the car, sometimes the car just, the rear part of the car just got out. So it's oversteering. But of course, a lot of that is also the driver. It's how I'm using the throttle, the steering, the brakes, everything. But I'm gonna adjust the ESC because I now have set it up with this is 15% drag brake and 87% brake force. So I'm gonna higher the brake force to 100 and then adjust the brake just using the travel. That's the reverse endpoint in the transmitter. So you fine adjust it there. And then I also gonna put on a bit weight in the rear of the cars. Let me see what else was I doing. Yes, and I have these tires are in the 30 grade. You have these number grades on the tires. And usually in the indoor track they told me that they are using a bit softer tires, that's 28, so that will maybe get a bit better grip traction on the track. So that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna test the car again. You have this web page that's called So Dialed, and they also got this free app for both. I think it's both for Android and Apple. I think it's also the So Dialed, or what they call the app. And in that app you have a troubleshooter. So if you're looking into there and you can see the oversteering on power corner exit, you can see what they suggest they're doing that. I know that they suggest to have some stiffer sway bars in the front and some softer sway bars in the rear. And also you can add a bit of weight or move a bit weight to the rear of the cars. So I'm going to do a bit of that tunings that they suggest in that app. And then I'm just going to see if I can drive the car better and faster. And you have to take it slowly and just get up to speed. And it's not about driving the fastest lap. It's about driving with consistency and not doing many mistakes. But try to get the lapse times quite even and on the same time. So if I'm driving on the 12 seconds, I should maybe drive all for 5 minutes, because the race is for 5 minutes. So I should drive all the laps for around 12 seconds. And then when I start to get better, I can maybe push the lapse times down to maybe 11.5 and maybe 11.0 and try to keep all the lapse times for 5 minutes down to 11 without doing some mistakes. And that's how you're getting better. Not by doing like you drive 1 laps on 10 seconds and 1 laps on 18 seconds and 1 laps on 16 seconds. You want to have all the laps quite near each other in time. Then you are driving with consistency and in control. That's much what it's about. Then just of course learn to drive the car with the throttle, steering and brake, and then learn a bit about tuning the car and set it up correctly. So this car is going to set up for what they called modified, because this car have a 10.5 turn motor and it's got the 160 amp hobby wing ESC. So this car is set up with a bit of timing now. So this car is not possible to drive in the stock. Then I had to change the motor, because in the stock you have to have a 13.5 turn motor. That's what they are using here in Norway, at least with the touring cars, 4-wheel drive. But that's also why when I bought this Schumacher, this comes with a 13.5 so and ESC that I can use in stock racing. So this car I'm going to set up for stock racing. And of course, maybe if I'm getting better and a bit more serious about this, I could maybe change the electronics from that Team Associated car over here, so I can use this car for modified racing. Since this is a newer car and maybe a better car, I'm not sure, but as I have very little experience, I will not probably not feel any different. You have to drive for some time and drive with more consistency to be able to feel the difference between a new car and an old car. I saw this Swedish racer. The people who are into on-road racing probably know who I'm thinking about. I can't not remember his name. He's driving X-Ray. He has some really excellent videos on YouTube, and also some videos on ESC turning and tuning and a lot of other tuning things. And he did a test with a very old X-Ray car. I think it was 15 years old or something. And then the new, I'm not sure if it was the XB4 or what they call it, the X-Ray. And he did some driving on the outdoor track asphalt, if I remember right. And he drove some laps. And it was a very small difference, because he's driving with, of course, very good skills and very consistency. So it was, I think it was 0.5 seconds difference in the lapse times between this 15-old car and this quite new car. Yeah, about 0.5 seconds, I believe. So that tells a bit how little difference it is. But of course, when you are a pro racer, that's a big difference. But for a new racer like me, I would probably not feel a difference at all. And I could probably end up driving faster with the old car than the new car. So if you're getting into racing and touring and two-wheel drive cars to the on-road or something like that, you start with maybe buying a used car and see if you really like it. Get something quite cheap with electronics. Maybe just look out that you get spare parts for the car if you're going to keep it for some time and drive it for some time. I don't believe you will see a very big difference in how fast you drive a new car versus an older car that's maybe just a few years old, or even maybe 5 to 10 years old. So again, I have to see how I drive these two cars, and maybe I'm going to end up driving the old car faster than this new car. But this is going to be set up for stock racing, and the other one for modified racing. And if I'm going to drive more seriously and now getting better, I'm maybe going to change the electronics to modified setup on this car and stock on the other, just to have the newest car for the modified class. But also another point is you have to look at your local club and what type of race they are having there. If they are using mostly stock setup cars and stock racing, that would be what I would prefer to have this car on also. Because it can be a bit more expensive to drive in a modified class. And also, of course, if you have very good drivers there, they are driving crazy fast. So for a new driver, it's maybe a bit better to start off in the stock class. Well, that was a lot of talking. Now I really have to do some work here also. So that was all for that video, and later I may be gonna come back when I'm driving this Schumacher Mi8 stock setup on the indoor track. And if the weather gets better, you're also probably gonna see me doing some more racing on the outdoor track. And also interesting to see when I get the new wet tires for the two-wheel drive, and see if it's the mini spike, Schumacher mini spike silver, and see if the car is a bit better to control on wet condition outdoor. Also the two-wheel TLR car that I was using in the competition, but it was very hard to drive there. And later this winter we also going to drive indoor, both with on-road cars and off-road buggies, and using these buggy foams donuts, as I told you. Yeah, so I come back later when I'm probably doing some more driving. Also, these videos are not the sort of videos to show you a lot of stuff, really. It's more, I hope some of these videos can maybe get more people into RC driving. That's also why I show you when I'm buying used stuff. And like this car here, 110 scale touring 4-wheel drive cars. I bought this car used with some spare parts, all the electronics, for around $119 US. So that's just show you that it don't have to be very expensive to get into RC cars and RC cars driving. Just be a bit patient and look for a good buy, and also try to find a car that you still got spare parts for, and that you got spare parts from a local dealer. That's the best hobby shop. That's the best. So I hope these videos can give you some information how to get into RC racing and what the different classes are. And you are now see me driving both neat nitro cars, a truggy and a buggy, and electric, of course, and bashing. Also some smaller scale cars, and also now racing and touring. So you can maybe think about what you maybe want to try out yourself. I would look out in the near and see what kind of hobby shops do you got near you that's selling RC cars. Go and talk to them, because they probably know a lot of what clubs, RC clubs are near you. And maybe visit just the clubs to see what kind of tracks they got and what cars they are using, and just talk with the people. Most of the people like to talk with new people that are getting into the hobby. And of course, the man in the RC shop is a lot positive about you coming into the shop and talking about RC cars, because he maybe think you are a new customer. So he probably gonna tell you a lot of things that and try to get you into the hobby. But it can be expensive. It can really be very expensive. So we also have to look at the budget. But for me, it's not only about building cars, all the electronics and setups and the nerdy stuff. It's also very much about the social part of this. But because it's very easy to go to a RC track and start talking with people that you don't know. Because you only have to go there and just knock on the door or go in and watch the cars and start talking with people, and then you meet new people and a lot of friendly people. So it's very easy to get new friends and to get to know new people there. And some of the indoor tracks, they also have this social part where you can sit down and relax and take a coffee or something to eat or drink or something, and just relax and see. And also nice to see that it's both young people and old people, so it's sort of an arena where both old and young people can meet and do the same thing. Both old and young people like to drive and build cars and learn about the cars. And a lot of the young peoples are really the expert and the pro drivers. I look at myself like just an old man that are getting into RC. Again, because I also was in the RC when I was about 13, 14 years old in the 80s. Then I was into Tamiya for some years, but not a long time. And later I built this Humla crawler because I like crawler, and I'm still liking RC cars. And then later again, when we got the COVID, I started again with RC because I got a lot of spare times and a lot of the other clubs was locked down, so I had to find something to do. So I started up again with RC. And then I met some people, and later I got to know the local club here where I'm living, and the RC tracks, indoors RC tracks, so I also can drive indoors, because again, outdoors, it's raining and it's black. You cannot drive outdoor in Norway, no, it's so late on the day in the autumn or the winter. Then they have to have very good lighting, but that usually they don't on the outdoor tracks. So indoor racing is something that's more easy in Norway in the autumn and winter time. Yes, so I hope some people maybe get some information here and inspiration to maybe start themselves. Because if the RC hobby gonna survive and the local shops and the RC tracks gonna survive, we have to get more people into the hobby. And again, it can be expensive, but it can also don't need to be very expensive. And just visit local club and ask what they are using. And maybe also some people are selling off some used equipment there. And if you just spend some time and read about the cars on the internet and check that you can get spare parts for the car, then probably it's quite safe buy. Yep, so that was all I had to tell this day. I have some work to do. Yeah, goodbye.